Are you feeling lost in a digital wilderness? Welcome to Lost in Siberia. We are your guide to navigating the world of cyberspace.
So, whether you're a tech enthusiast or you're looking to land your first job in InfoSec, we're here to break things down into bite sized pieces so that you don't have to. So, welcome back to another episode of Lost in Siberia. We're your hosts, Annie-Mei
and Anika.
And today we've got an exciting guest on the show today. We've got Wadzi Nenzou, who is the founder of our scam story. So welcome to the show, Wadzi.
Thank you for having me, beautiful ladies.
Great to have you. So Wadzi Nenzou, the investment scam educator, is passionate about people building their wealth without losing their hard-earned money to investment scams. She works towards this big goal by educating, speaking, writing, commentating, being a panelist, and collaborating globally with fellow scam experts. Wadzi is the founder of Our Scam Stories, a global platform where scam survivors share their scam survival stories. There is power in stories. They connect, educate, inspire, and empower people to act. In this case, Our Scam Stories is there to educate the public, normalize openly talking about scams, to remove the stigma for people to realize they are not alone. A financial services professional with over 18 years of experience in the industry, she has worked in the areas of financial planning, fintech, superannuation, investments, banking, and compliance. Over the years, she had the pleasure of being interviewed on the ABC News Breakfast Show about investment scams. She has also been interviewed on the Australian Finance Podcast and Australian Retirement Trust, two of the top finance podcasts in Australia. She has been the face of some Bendigo Bank's scam awareness video campaigns and been spotlighted by the Bendigo Bank in their Bendigo Bank Life Coach podcast on how investing is for everyone, and was honored to be one of the investing experts for Yahoo Finance Australia's Women Money Movement investing event. She has been featured by Forbes Advisor and Finder as an investment scams expert and has also been a featured expert in the Yahoo Finance Australia's Women Money Movement newsletter and been interviewed by Incubate Foundation, Girly World, and Ladies Talk Money as an investing educator. Welcome to the show, Wadzi, again. So good to have you.
Thank you so much. That was too long. Whilst you're reading that, I'm like, God damn, I shouldn't have given you such a long spiel.
I mean, it's better. I mean, I feel like everyone only has so many opportunities in their life to get themselves promoted. So, it's always nice to hear all the things you've achieved.
It's so funny because when I was listening to that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. But I was like, oh God, it's not going to end. It's just going on and on and on. But yeah, no, it's absolutely lovely. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Anika. And I'm really excited to be on this podcast with you, lovely ladies.
Yeah, thanks so much. Basically, the reason I came across you was because I posted an article about a financial scams article that I wrote in the Australian Women in Security magazine, and help women do better with their own finances and stuff, which I think is it's great that this is becoming a lot more common.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's how we ended up connecting. So I'm really interested to know what made you become so passionate about informing people about scam.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting story because, so just to give you, I guess, some background on myself, I'm originally from Zimbabwe in Africa. So I came to Australia in 2001 to do my university. And I did commerce, and then I did accounting. So I've always been in that financial services space. And I always knew, even when I was growing up in Zimbabwe, that I've always wanted to empower people about money, especially women. Especially when I was growing up in Zimbabwe, there was such an obvious correlation between financial literacy, financial empowerment, and kind of freedom for women to have more choices in how they live their lives. So when I came here and I did my university, and then I started working in finance, after when I turned 30, the big 3-0 kind of made me really evaluate how I'm giving back to just the broader world. And I started Her Economics. It was, at that time, it wasn't a company. It's now a company, but it was just kind of just an idea. And I started, educating women about money. It's kind of evolved over the years quite a bit. And then over COVID, I started doing share education courses for women over Zoom. And then that's when all of a sudden, all these wonderful ladies I was teaching about shares and investing started coming to me with scam stories, right? With, either they were being ripped off or they're losing their money. And I'm also part of a number of groups, online women's groups. And in those groups, I started hearing just more and more women losing thousands of dollars to scams when they're trying to invest, or in other ways, whether it's job scams or a lot of other different type of scams. And that made me really look into it. I was like, oh, this is I could see kind of accelerating more than it used to be. And that's when I remember in 2022, I was shocked when the statistics came and it said Australians had lost $3 billion in scams. And then I learned that half of that, like 1.5 billion, was investment scams. And I was like, oh my God, that is horrible. And also it makes it even worse in knowing that that's just the tip of the iceberg, because most people don't actually report their scams. So that was just a tip of it. And that's kind of got me talking more about scams and just educating the ladies, but also just other people in general about scams. And that was how I started.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Anika and I, both working in cybersecurity, we see that as well with people who get scammed. Either could be financially as well, but even just clicking on links and stuff like that, and they turn out to be malicious. But there's so much stigma around scams, with victims not wanting to report it. So like you said, it's just the tip of the iceberg. With the financial scams that you were saying, like 1.5 billion, it's just investment scams alone. What do you see are like the common reasons why women or people in general, why do they fall for those types of scams?
When it comes to investment scams, I mean, I think they've really, especially in the last few years, they've accelerated quite a lot because of a number of reasons. So one of them was pretty much, think about, I guess, COVID happened. And then after COVID, there's been the cost of living crisis, right? Globally, really. And human beings, as I always say, we're very solutions focused. Struggling with money, we start looking for ways to earn more money, right? We start looking for, okay, how can I supplement my income in some way? So more people were interested, not just women, men, everyone was interested in investing more to try and just, increase their income or to just grow their wealth over the long term. So first of all, there's just an increased number of people investing. That started in COVID, actually, when people were at home doing nothing. They're like, oh, okay, we're just going to start getting into investing. So that just means that obviously more people are then exposed to potential scams. So that's one thing that happened, where more people and more women as well, percentage-wise, decided they now want to start getting into investing. Another major reason, as I said, with cost of living crisis, people are just desperate to earn more money. So they then are willing to kind of be more risky, right? So maybe people who are a lot more cautious have now decided, actually, maybe to make more money, I need to be a little bit riskier. So then they're more open to things that back in the days they might have been more cautious about, but now they're willing to venture into things like crypto, things that they probably would not have given a time of day in the past. But now, because of desperation and wanting to earn more money, they are now more open to those options. And then another thing that, I think you asked, people falling more for investment scams, there's also a level of greater sophistication that is also started within the scam space as a whole, especially investment scams with things like AI and deepfakes now being used, which, impact even people who know about scams. Some people who are in this, these ladies, whether it's people in the security world or people in the scam world or people in finance who have been scammed because of really highly sophisticated deepfakes or AI focused scams. So it just makes it harder for the general person who's not even in the industry to know the difference between real investments and scams.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, totally agree.
I think you really echo about the stigma that a lot of victims have and the lack of reporting. And I feel like with scams, especially, with the digital scams, I feel like people not wanting to report certain things because of society's views on certain victims is not a new thing. But from your experience, what do you think contributes to that societal stigma when it comes to investment scam victims? And in your area of work, what do you do to have people open up to you and provide them that support to break that stigma?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Anika. So, yeah, you're right. Like stigma in general, especially around scams and fraud, has always been there for sure. I think I'm trying to remember who it was. I can't remember. They said people view someone who's had their money stolen through a scam very different from somebody who's had a thief walk through their door and steal the stuff.
Yes.
They have very different empathy levels towards those people. So, and this is the thing, right? It's something that I myself have evolved a lot over the years, because back in the day, do you remember those kind of Nigerian prince emails?
Yeah.
I always like to
Yeah, I feel like the Nigerian print scam's definitely taken a backseat in recent
Yeah,
times.
exactly. So back in the day, right, those were kind of the ones everyone used to laugh about. And I remember back then, before things really amplified in the scam world, digitally especially, was that I used to think, oh, come on, how can you fall for that? Like I used to be one of those people, to be very frank. I used to be one of those people who would be very judgmental and just be thinking, I could never fall for that. It's so obvious. So a part of that, the reason why there's probably more stigma is, first of all, scams are just more amplified as well. So compared to back in the day when it was like, oh yeah, Nigerian prince and this, there's more organized crime rings and syndicates when it comes to the scam world to begin with. So they're just more amplified and a lot more people getting scammed. And obviously that means that you get to see a lot of a higher level of judgment, I guess, against whoever is being scammed. And also people do this because they don't want to believe that it can happen to them. So it's kind of like a defense mechanism or safety mechanism, whatever you want to call it, where they want to look down on other people because they're like, there's no way that's going to happen to me. So it's a way to, I guess, protect themselves, human psychology 101. And to be honest, a lot of people truly believe that it's not going to happen to them. So a lot of people truly believe that all these people who've been scammed are idiots, they're dumb, they should have known better. And then one thing I have learned, honestly, ever since I started being in the scam world, is that anybody can be scammed. I have literally seen it. People who literally are head of fraud. There was literally a post on LinkedIn of a head of fraud in the UK who got scammed. And so anyone can be scammed if the scammer hits the right buttons. And what a lot of people don't seem to understand is, especially with the more recent scammers, not the Nigerian prince ones, which were pretty obvious in many ways, but the more sophisticated scams these days, like the pig butchering scams or whatever you want to call them, they are so good at social engineering. They're very good at hitting specific buttons that have nothing to do with intelligence, because a lot of highly intelligent, highly aware people are scammed because of just human nature of them feeling lonely, like just loneliness or wanting human connection and things that are just human needs. Scammers are good at jumping on those things and actually scamming people who normally you would think could never be scammed. So that's one thing as well that's important to realize, that anybody can be scammed. It's something I can be scammed. Many times it's nearly happened. So it's something that anyone can go through. And I think you asked Anika around what do I do? I guess one of the things when it comes to scam survivors, again, I also really highlight to them exactly what I just said, because a lot of them come in thinking, oh, I'm such an idiot. I'm the only one who'd fall, all this stuff. And then I explain to them just how scammers usually work now, how they social engineering things, how a lot of people are scammed, and I give them examples of people who they probably would think would never be scammed. I'm like, this person has been scammed. So they get to see that actually it's not just myself, that anyone can be scammed. I'm not an idiot. I'm just somebody where, a crime has occurred and I deserve empathy and I deserve compassion. So I kind of highlight to them, exactly that as well, which is one of the reasons I started the platform as well, the Our Scam Stories platform.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
read an article somewhere about like, well, because we have been researching the scam compounds in Southeast Asia and preparing for our talk in CyberCon Melbourne on this topic, and we went to that from an angle of the dating apps, and one of the reasons for the pig butchering or romance baiting scams is so successful is because of the loneliness epidemic as well.
Yes,
Yeah, after
exactly.
COVID hit, yes, so many people, their lives shattered, their social lives have shattered. We have a generation growing up now that didn't get to go to their high school graduations. They didn't get to experience, the first university years or college years and things like that. So, and I remember when I first started looking into that, into pig butchering, and remember reading how they have. How the scammers have scripts around how to talk to people, how to make them laugh, like saying things like, make them laugh, make them trustworthy, share something about yourself. So and that's the level of sophistication when it comes to social engineering, combined, as you said, with the advance of technology and AI and deepfakes. Yes, it definitely removes the stigma from, should remove the stigma from the digital scam victims. But I like it how you said that a crime occurred to you. And do you feel like sometimes maybe this is not elevated to a level of, or a crime has occurred?
Yes, because a lot of people say you played a part in it. So that's how they view a lot of scams, especially the scams where, whether it's in the pig butchering situation where somebody thinks they're in love with somebody and then they start sending them money, whether it's to help them with some situation or maybe they get them into some sort of investment scheme. And so they are actively giving them the money or actively doing something to provide the information to the scammer. So a lot of people, they look at it and they feel like you did that yourself. That's how they view it. It's not viewed as a thief came and stole your money. It's more like you were part of it, so you are to blame for it. That's where kind of people find it very difficult to have empathy for scam victims the way they would somebody who's had a robbery, because they just view it differently. They see it as you took part in this, so they don't see it as a crime. They might see it as a crime, but they don't see it at the same level as somebody who's been robbed.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what you said about the aspect of through social engineering, they're targeting human emotions and stuff. I really think that for people who have like an active social life and have a lot of good relationships and stuff, I think might be less likely to fall for these types of scams because they're not looking for a relationship, or they're not looking for friendship to a certain degree because they already are quite happy and they're already quite comfortable in their life. I can understand why it would have happened a lot during COVID because people were so isolated from each other.
Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting. I was down in Melbourne last week for a training course, and I was catching an Uber to the city, I think, and I got to chatting to the Uber driver, and we came on a conversation what I did for work, and he said, he's like, that's really interesting, you work in cybersecurity. He was telling me that he had a guy get in the Uber recently and was on the phone to somebody, and he seemed very distressed and was saying, I'm going to take all this money out of the ATM for you now, like blah blah blah. Anyway, he gets off the phone and he asked him, he's like, oh, sorry, because I overheard the conversation. He said, do you mind, is everything okay?
Yeah.
And he said, oh, I got a call from the ATO and they said that I owe them money and I'm going to go get the money out now. And he's like, no, like, don't go to the ATO.
Don't do it.
Yeah. So this Uber driver, like, literally stopped this guy from getting scammed.
Oh my God, what a good Uber driver. Driver MVP, Uber driver. But again, that's another thing, talking about human nature, the sense of urgency, right? They're very good as well at like, oh my God, this needs to happen now, especially using, really well-known organizations like the ATO or your super or your bank. You feel like you need to urgently do something, or even the Victorian police, or any type of police really, they take advantage of that sense of urgency so that people just do something without thinking. And actually, Annie-Mei, you mentioned just before, I wanted to touch base on what you mentioned about people who've got social connections. Yeah, I mean, in most situations, I would say, yeah, that is definitely true. That I think having more of connections, whether it's friendships, connections or romance, can be a protective layer. It's not a kind of a definite though, because I know plenty of people who've got plenty of social connections who still are scammed. But one thing, an advantage that comes from having social connections, which some people might not think about, is normally sometimes when it comes to, let's say, bigger type of investment scam or investment transactions, a lot of people might talk to their friends about it. Like if they've got connection, they can then say, oh, you know, I've been talking to this guy, or I've been talking to this lady or whatever, and now they've got this amazing investment opportunities. They're talking to their social connections and friends. There's more chance of getting the heads up that actually that sounds dodgy, or that sounds like a scam.
Yeah.
Whereas if somebody is a loner and they don't really have anyone to kind of talk to about different things, they're more likely then to not realize that it's a scam if they're kind of clouded by romance or just friendship and so forth. So having more connections and human contact would definitely be an advantage in that situation as well.
Yeah.
And it's being
No,
open, right? Yeah, communicating. I mean, with the Uber driver, it was just something that, I mean, sometimes it's our human nature to not say anything.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah,
their
because
own
you don't want to
business.
be seen as like interfering or something.
Yes, I don't
Yeah.
want to be, well, if you know, they can handle themselves, I might just be a burden. And different cultures handle that differently. And we have cultures with more collective mindsets that they protect each other. I think Australia probably being more of like of the Western world is more of an individualistic mindset. But luckily we have quite a lot of immigrants that build this country up, and you know, we have a very diverse set of people. And I think, and of course, Wadzi, you're the expert in this, but I feel like that can definitely help change the culture of being more collective, because we can't always like trust the government to be the one advising us about the recent scams. And and I haven't seen an ad recently on the Australian, well, I don't watch, you know, TV, but I haven't seen like many ads, you know, even like on YouTube or things like that, or like posters or something around scams that are happening. So if we can't trust the government, we'll have to, I guess, trust each other and communicate that. But I also wanted to mention that you said that the poor guy that was targeted by the ATO, unfortunately, the victims that get targeted a lot are immigrants themselves, because they're the ones that are more fearful from these authority agencies. So
Exactly. You nailed it. So when you look at statistics, unfortunately, so there's certain groups that lose a lot more than other groups. So whether it's like you're saying, the CALD communities, the culturally and linguistically diverse communities, whether you're looking for at over 65 people, whether you're looking at Aboriginals, like Indigenous people, and also just disabled people, there are people who are kind of targeted. And this is not new. Let's be honest, like this is, it's just more amplified, unfortunately, because of just how organized the scammers have become, and also technology. Scammers are good at targeting where they know would be like a vulnerable spot. So yes, I mean, when it comes to in a specific country, you know, immigrants or migrants, there's certain things they don't understand about the system. They would just easily think, oh my God, the Victoria police is about to come and arrest me, or the ATO is about to, you know, I'm going to be sent to jail if I don't do this immediately. So because they don't have that understanding of the system, then the scammers know that it would be easier for them to scam migrants in that way. And for example, as well, if we talk about over 65, especially investment scammers, they really like to target that group, because a lot of them, you know, either they're pre-retirees or they're retired. And some of them, not all of them, especially nowadays, there's more, I guess, technology education going around, but a lot of them are not really technologically savvy. So they can kind of fall for certain things because they don't really understand technology. But also they target them because a lot of them have accumulated a lot of, you know, assets and investments over their lifetime. So they know that they'll have a big payout if they target people in that retirement stage as well. So yeah, they're very good at targeting specific groups for different reasons. That's correct.
Yeah, it's interesting also what you said before about the fact that your friends can alert you to scams as well, because that actually happened to me. Because when I went to China in 2014, and I was scammed, and I didn't realize I was scammed until I told a friend about it, because I actually didn't realize it was a scam.
Yeah.
So, because and again, it was like what you were saying before about how say like immigrants coming to Australia, they don't know what the norms are. It was
Yeah.
kind of the same for me, right? Because I didn't know that this was a common scam.
Yeah.
And basically what happened was I was, traveling solo. I was walking around Shanghai and I got approached by these two Chinese people who spoke very good English, which is quite unusual for a start.
Yeah.
And they started chatting to me and they said, oh, do you want to come to this tea house? And I didn't know that this Chinese tea house thing was like quite a common scam for foreigners. And so they took me to this tea house. We had all this nice tea. And then afterwards, they made me pay, and I had to pay for everyone. But I to be honest, like didn't think it was that odd, because I was like, oh, well, it's nice of them to invite me here, right?
Oh.
And anyway, we leave, and then they say goodbye, blah blah blah. We part ways. I catch the subway back to my hostel or whatever. And then I'm telling my friend who I was meant to be meeting up. I was meeting up with her a few days later, and I said, I met these Chinese people and they took me to this tea house. And then,
so nice.
and then she was like, don't you realize you just got scammed? And I was like,
Oh,
no.
no.
And yeah, so I had no idea. Like I just thought it was normal.
Listen, I mean, yes, honestly, like having people to kind of converse with and just share your life in general, it makes a big difference for potential scams, especially nowadays whenever something happens and then you're with your group of friends and you're chatting, and a lot of people are more alert about scams in general. So there's a high chance, if you're someone who openly shares with your friends or your family, that someone would be like, no, that doesn't sound right, or are you sure, or what's happening? And yeah, so it's one of those things where you're like, having social connections is actually really important. Listen, it's important for just general happiness and general of being a human being. We're social animals, so having that connection is important for exactly that. It also will, I guess, help with the loneliness epidemic, right? The more social connection and human connection, the less loneliness epidemic, the less likely as well that people will be more lured in as well, because they're wanting to connect with people. So yeah, I think that definitely will play a big part in that as well.
Yeah. This reminds me how people ask each other, especially I think women do this maybe a bit more, about like, can you please read this email and tell me if it sounds angry? And
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm going to break up with my boyfriend. Can you read this message and see if it sounds okay?
That is so true. That is so true. And that is good. That's another thing as well. Statistically wise, more men are scammed than women. There's a number of reasons for that. But yes, the fact that women were just more like, there's just more connection amongst it, like the sisterhood, or women just being more open about what's happening in their lives is actually a really good thing for them in that regard. And men, usually a lot of men keep things to themselves a lot more, which obviously when it comes to scams, like we're just saying, is not a good thing. Yeah, so that's another thing as well to think about.
yeah, I remember my my ex-partner, and he stayed home one day. It was during COVID, I think, and he stayed home and he said, oh, I think I'm sick, so I better stay home and work from home. And then I got home and I was like, how are you? And asking him all these questions, as one does. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm doing better. I'm ordering this test online. I got this message from Medicare. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I got this message from Medicare. And here they told me that they're going to send me a free test. I just need to press on this link. And I was like,
oh no.
Anyways, so I migrated to this country. And I knew that Medicare doesn't do this, and he's a native to this country. But again, like if I didn't ask him, he wouldn't have told me, basically. Yes, and we do have more men, I guess, kind of. Well, they say men loneliness epidemic. I don't believe that, but I think we have like more men kind of living by themselves or not being as open. And yes, absolutely, more of them fall into these types of scams. But it's very interesting, though, because I think women take less risks when it comes to finance in general. So it does hurt them because maybe they're less as you said before, they take less risks and things like that. But it could potentially be a benefit for investments as well, right? Because they take less risks, so they just continue.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Yeah. In terms of actually, isn't it funny? The thing that actually stops women from building as much wealth over the long term can actually protect them from investment scams. Isn't that funny? It's like it's not long term, is probably not the best thing, but at the same time, yes, you're actually right, Anika. It's funny because long term, a lot of women can be very risk averse, where a lot of their money is sitting in just their savings account and they don't actually grow it long term. And as someone who's an investment educator, obviously that's one thing that I was educating women to be more open to putting their money somewhere where it could grow more than in just a savings account. However, you're right in that one of the reasons, exactly what I was saying, some men lose more for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is that, yes, they are riskier in general. They're willing to try higher risk options, which again, over the long term, for those where it works, they tend to build more wealth because they're willing to risk it, but they also tend to lose more from scams as well because of the same thing. So yes, it's an advantage and a disadvantage in some ways. And yeah, you're right about that with women as well.
That's why we should always have our own accounts and not shared accounts, I think.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but it's a really interesting kind of conundrum, right? It's like you want to have a bit more risk that you grow your wealth, but you also don't want to open yourself up to scams. So it's always like a balancing act.
What are some of the other reasons that men get scammed more?
I think, listen, I mean, every kind of situation is different. Like I was saying, it's generalizing, like hugely generalizing, because every individual kind of scam situation is totally different. Doesn't really matter about the gender. It depends with this individual circumstance, whether it's a man who is part of the loneliness epidemic and they just want romance, but then they're riskier in nature and are willing to try overseas more than, what I mean? They're willing to open to all sorts of opportunities, which is in their nature, and it just opens that up for them. But yeah, so just the kind of riskier in nature, just it's actually a biological thing. Funny enough, there's a major mental health crisis for men in general worldwide. So with mental health as well, it makes you more vulnerable, right? Like think about that. That's someone can really take advantage of someone who's going through kind of mental health situation. If you just look at the suicide rate for men worldwide, you'll see what I'm talking about in terms of there's a major mental health epidemic as well, which makes them vulnerable to scammers and criminals pretty much, but also just a lot of pressure on themselves to also make money for their families. They feel like the cost of living crisis, they feel like it's on their shoulder. They have to come up with the goods. They have to make this money. So it opens up again, them trying things that maybe they might not try just so that they can earn more money.
Yeah, I read this case about, again, so a pig butchering scam, which obviously is a double sword scam, right? Because we have two types of victims, those who are scamming, who are forced to scam, and those being scammed. And I read this very heartbreaking article in New York Times about a man from Kenya, I believe, and he got this ad for an IT job straight out of university. And all of the family basically sold their assets off to buy him a ticket to go to Thailand.
Oh.
And from Thailand, he was taken to the Myanmar compound scams. And it's heartbreaking because it's not just that one man who was genuinely and he had his whole family behind him. So he had that connection. He was well educated. He was savvy. And still, it's just heartbreaking. But also, I'm thinking, if it was, for instance, the daughter of the family, they would say, well, don't go overseas. Perhaps it's too dangerous for you to go by yourself. We still have a little bit of that.
Exactly. So which means you've nailed it. So there's certain circumstances where men end up going because societally it's more acceptable for them to go into these situations, which, exactly like you're saying, culturally in a lot of places, women would not be, it wouldn't be something that they would do or that their cultures would really want them to do. So then that, funny enough, even though it's kind of that conundrum, right? Of it's like stopping their freedom, but at the same time, it's also protecting them as well. It's really bizarre. So it's one of those things that, I mean, the pig butchering scam compounds are heartbreaking. I agree, Anika. I remember being shocked when I realized that a lot of those people are actually like slave labor, really, and they are forced to do it. Not all of them, by the way. Some of them are just financial gain people. They know exactly what they're doing and they get into it, wanting to scam people. But there's so many who are treated like absolute slaves, and they're tortured, and some of them are killed, and they can't leave. And it's just one of those double things where it's like they're actually, it's a crime what has happened to them, and then they're also having, like, stealing from other people, and it's just a horrible cycle, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard the podcast Scam Factory. It was one that Wondery did. I think it came out last year. It's still fairly recent.
Oh no, I haven't come across that yet.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a listen. It's about 6 episodes, and it's about this woman in the Philippines and how she ends up unknowingly sending her brother to a scam compound because she's hired as a recruiter. And then the story kind of unfolds where she ends up, one of her other brothers ends up going, and then she it's a pretty awful story. And then
that's horrible.
And then obviously she obviously knowingly is then sending other people there, right? But also because she doesn't want anything to happen to her brothers, because the boss obviously knows that they're related to her. So it's just this story of it's very complicated, and it's
oh my God, that sounds horrific. I'm actually going to check that out. Have you guys heard of Erin West? Do you know Erin West? She's based in the US. So she used to be like a deputy district attorney, I believe, and she's recently retired. She's been fighting pig butchering scams now for a number of years. It's been a main focus of hers, and she recently, I think it was last year, she started an organization called Operation Shamrock, which is focused on pretty much fighting pig butchering scams and fighting these transnational organized crime rings. She's actually gone to some of these scam compounds and infiltrated. Like, she's doing amazing work. It's crazy. Like, sometimes I'm afraid for her safety, to be very honest. But she's out there exposing and sharing them on LinkedIn. I'd recommend you check her out. She's called Erin West. She's really fighting the good fight. But yeah, it is horrific. But yeah, it's one of those things where there's so much happening, and so many people losing so much of their livelihoods and just being absolutely devastated. And that's the reason I wanted to actually showcase the people behind the statistics. That's why I started our Scam Stories platform, because I wanted to show people that these are human beings. Like, these are people of all types, of all, like, who do all sorts of different jobs. They come from different backgrounds, and they're losing, their money is being stolen from them. They deserve empathy, and to just kind of humanize scam victims or scam survivors.
Is there one story from all the people that you've spoken to that really stood out to you, or just someone whose story was really like different from everyone else's? Or
not necessarily quite different, but I'm a big fan of Beth Highland. So Beth Highland is like a scam advocate who's from the US. Her story is the first one I shared on our Scam Stories. I remember when I decided to start the project, I wanted her story to be the first one that I shared. Because she's someone who she suffered. It was a pig butchering scam, so it was romance and in investment scams. It was one of those that she's just someone who's been fighting the good fight for so long, fighting so much stigma. A lot of people just looking down on her. She shares her story, and then you have people just saying horrible stuff, but she just keeps on going. So she's someone who I have so much respect and admiration for. And so her story just broke my heart. She shared it on the platform, but it's not necessarily a different story. It's more the person herself and how much she is putting herself out there, being attacked and a lot of stigma around that, but still just doing it because she wants to make sure no one else goes through what she's gone through. And she's someone that I admire strongly because of that.
It's almost like a Me Too movement, but for scam stories, and it becomes more appropriate to share and that it actually reveals what is actually happening. I mean, in criminology, we do see this a lot, that dark side of data, that
Yeah.
unreported, the hidden, the secret. And it's really hard to get action done when nobody knows about it and everyone is hiding the story that they're carrying with themselves for the rest of their life. And
Exactly right. The reason for the platform is so many different reasons. Firstly, yeah, I mean, I want to lower the stigma and showcase that all sorts of people get scammed and they deserve empathy. But it's also, yeah, to reduce the shame, because shame kind of thrives in silence, right? And people not sharing what happened. So when people actually open up, so some of the sharers have already told me just doing this was very cathartic for them, because they were able to just let it out of their bodies and just and it's just a kind of like a really therapeutic situation for them, lifts the shame and all that stuff. And then also it's education, it's an awareness tool, like you're saying. It shows people, okay, look at how scammers work, what they're doing. And someone might read that and be like, oh God, that sounds like what I'm doing right now. Like the person I'm talking to right now, it sounds similar to that. And it kind of raises awareness of the type of scams out there and helps people. Like the most recent scam that I shared is from a lady from Nigeria who—
Oh, I think I saw that one.
Yeah, a job scam.
Yeah.
And that is so huge. Job scams have exploded.
Yeah, I get them. I swear I get a message like once a fortnight.
Yeah.
A scam message. Yeah,
it's crazy. So just for people reading that, I think it raises awareness and makes people know what to look out for. So there's a number of really good things about that platform, and I'm really looking forward to sharing a lot more kind of diverse stories as well. The first few stories were all kind of romance scams, or investment and romance combined. I'm now having a job scam one, but I want to kind of share a variety of different scams to just highlight the type of scams people need to be aware of as well.
When did you start our scam stories, by the way?
Our scam stories is a baby. It just started in April.
Oh, okay, so it's very new. Yeah,
it's very new. It's an absolute baby. People are absolutely loving it. As in, I've only shared a few stories because, as you can imagine, not many people are willing to openly share their scam stories. So it's one of those platforms that not necessarily going to just explode with a lot of stories, because understandably, people know that people will judge them for it. They're absolutely right in being worried about it, because a lot of people are very mean around scam victims. And so I understand why they're worried about it. That's why I have so much appreciation and gratitude for the people who are willing to come forward, because they're willing to fight the good fights and potentially get attacked for it. But I always say to them, they are making the biggest difference. It's kind of contributing to a cultural revolution of people openly talking about scams without shame, and also just lowering the stigma, making it a common thing in society that this can happen to anyone and it's okay to openly talk about it. The people deserve empathy and compassion as well. So yeah, so it's a baby, and I'm looking forward to a lot more stories down the line. And
if you think about it, it's such a complicated issue. Scams in general, any types of scams, they cross borders.
Yeah.
Legislation is not there, or it's ambiguous, or it doesn't protect the victims. Not that legislation usually protects victims very well, but that's a different topic. We have technology that is advancing at an enormous speed.
Yeah.
Our police, as much as they wanted to, are just not able to respond.
They don't have the resources, they're not funded well and everything.
The criminal justice system is not, the Western adversarial criminal justice system is focused on finding the offenders. It's focused on getting the kingpin, the kingpin of the scam compound, the person that scammed you. It's focused on apprehending a criminal and attributing it to that. It's not focused on taking care of the people that were hurt. And so I think what you're doing is probably one of the only things that can actually prevent this from happening. Because if technically speaking, in a utopian world, everyone was aware of scams, nobody would get scammed, scammers wouldn't have revenue, and they will have to find a different way to obtain money, I guess. Yeah, it's an extremely useful and extremely helpful baby that you have there.
Thank you so much. I'm actually really proud of the platform, and the potential it has. I'm someone who loves stories. Any excuse to share people's stories. I already have another kind of stories platform, Hair Economics, which is for women and money stories. So it's something I've been doing for a while, and I decided, you know what? I want to make a difference using scam stories, using scam survivor stories, because I saw a gap. Like you're saying, Anika, there's a lot of people who are fighting. Honestly, I've been doing this for a long time. There's a lot of people within the police force, within industry, within private, who are really fighting the good fight. They are really doing everything, but there's so much that they can do. And there's certain gaps that are there. And I saw this gap and I was like, listen, this gap is focusing on the scam survivors, is focusing on the victims and having them be heard and having their stories being shared. And hopefully that will make a nice little kind of contribution to the whole fight. I'm a big team world. Let's collaborate together. Let's work together, because it's such a wicked problem, as the policy likes to say. It is a very big, wicked problem that needs all sorts of people fighting it.
Yeah, for
Give it a
sure.
viral hashtag to go around and start spreading it around, and everyone, sharing it. But I think like our scam stories, it has just so much potential of spreading this message across. And and it's just such a beautiful thing to do.
Thank you so much, Anika. I appreciate that.
Well, I think we better wrap up, because I guess we are at the end of the hour. But thank you again, Wadzi, for coming on. Would you mind sharing some of your social links or websites for people if they want to find out more information?
Yeah, of course. I mean, for our scam stories specifically, you can find me, or you can find it ourscamstories.com. And from that website, you'll be able to link to all the other different, because I share the stories on like Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. So on the website, if you go to ourscamstories.com, you'll be able to see links to those different pages as well. And you'll be able to enjoy that. You can follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I share all the projects that I do, Our Scam Stories, my investment education stuff. And I also share my women's money stories on Hair Economics on there as well. So if you're on LinkedIn, following me on my kind of personal page is always a good thing, because then it links to all the different projects that I'm a part of. So that's a good place to start. I've got a number of websites. Otherwise, it would take forever. There's the investment scams educator website. But if you go to my LinkedIn, you'll be able to see all those links if you want to kind of look further into it. And if you want to actually share your scam story, just know that you can share it openly. Like you can actually share yourself, like your face and everything, but you can also do it anonymously as well. So you can always come to me, like send on ourscamstories@gmail.com is the email address, or you can find me wherever you're linked with me, whether it's on LinkedIn or any of the other social media platforms. You can just message me and let me know that you're interested in sharing, and then I'll give you more information about how to get that done as well. And everyone else who's out there, please share our scam stories with people, and showcase that it's a platform that's there, so that we get more stories told on it as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's really a good point. I've shared my scam story today. Mine was not as bad because I didn't lose that much money, and it was a one-off thing. But
I don't care, Annie-Mei. I want you to actually write a proper scam story and give it to me so I can put it onto the scam stories.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll be your next my next victim, but that's not the right word.
I love it, because it's so actually I really would love to share your scam story, because I just realized it's so unique in terms of it's not the type of scam story that I probably would share, but it's something that would happen to a lot of travelers. So I think
100%. Yeah.
So I actually think your scam story is actually quite important. I actually mean it. I want to share it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and I'll write something up for you.
I will send you some info. But yeah, no, everyone just touch base with me if you ever want to share a story, or if you want to know more about the platform, and I'll be happy to help you with that.
Okay, great. Thank you everyone again for tuning into this episode of Lost in Siberia.
And we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.